If you know me, you've probably figured out by now that I love hail. To me, hail is magical. Sometimes millions of tiny stones all fall at once. Other times, rogue hailstones the size of baseballs shoot out the side of a storm, often catching me off guard. Look! This thing just came down right next to me. It's the size of a lemon. And once in a while, hailstones grow to be giant. They become icy meteors the size of softballs, grapefruits, or even larger. Rare behemoth stones the size of DVDs pelted Hockley County, Texas on May 28th. But hail comes in all shapes and sizes, which might actually be changing thanks to human-induced climate change. A new study published in the Nature journal Climate and Atmospheric Sciences makes some bold new predictions about how hail will change as the climate warms. Victor Gensini is a researcher at Northern Illinois University. He says that, as the air warms, more of the lower atmosphere will be above freezing. That means small hailstones will melt more on the way down.
And when you have, melting layers that increase by 500, 600, 800 meters in the future, of course, those smaller hailstones are, traveling at a much slower velocity towards the surface of the Earth, and they just have a greater propensity to be impacted by melting.
But that doesn't matter for big hailstones. That's because they're bigger and they fall faster, and that means they fall through the warm layer of atmosphere much faster before they have a chance to melt.
When a hailstone reaches that size, it has a higher terminal velocity, and we think that basically as it falls in that particular fall speed with those larger stones, melting doesn't matter as much when these hailstones get larger because their terminal velocities and their fall speed through the melting layer is much faster.
It comes down to terminal velocity, or how fast an object can fall before air resistance slows it down. For pea-sized hail, that speed is roughly 25 miles per hour. But for baseball-sized hail, close to 100 miles per hour, the same speed as a Major League Baseball pitch. Not that I know much about sports, but I know that. Different sized hail falls at different speeds. Gensini's team found a critical size threshold that has a bearing on melting.
You're exactly right. That kind of pivot point, or that coal point, so to speak, is right at about 4 centimeters.
4 centimeters is close to the size of a golf ball. Smaller hail falls too slowly and will melt more, becoming less common. But giant or gargantuan hail may be fueled by climate-driven warming, and there might be more of it. That's because more warm, moist air means faster updrafts, or plumes of upward-moving air in thunderstorms. The faster the updraft, the bigger the hail can grow as it's suspended in the sky before falling to the ground. And the biggest hailstones are the ones that are most damaging.
Over the last 18 months, we've had over $100 billion in losses in the United States from convective storms, and a majority of that is hail. Right? Tornadoes get a ton of attention. They're very sexy. They're really cool pictures. But in actuality, hail does way more damage every year than tornadoes do.
It doesn't take much for one unlucky hailstorm to park over a city and quickly become a billion-dollar disaster.
We are tracking hail damage across central Texas.
As large as baseballs.
The hail came down, and of course it damaged, as you mentioned, several cars.
Massive hail ripped through that area 6 months after the last hailstorm hit Norman.
In the light of day Thursday morning, the damage shocking to some homeowners.
Severe thunderstorms last night, dropping damaging hail.
Consider the state of Texas, for example. During a 25-year period, the state had 36 individual thunderstorm disasters that caused at least $100 million in damage each. Only 5 were from tornadoes. The rest? Hail. And insurance companies are taking notice.
You're seeing it in your premiums. You're seeing it in your policies. In fact, I just had my homeowners policy just renewed, and I now have exclusions in my homeowners policy about cosmetic damage versus structural damage, which never used to be there.
That's why Gensini is working to spearhead a new campaign to unlock the secrets of giant hail.
Because of the economic importance and the lack of scientific understanding in hail, there is a proposed field campaign called Ice Chip that it intends to be in the field studying hail in 2025.
Now, there are still many mysteries we simply don't understand about big hailstones. What determines their shape? Why is giant hail so tough to pinpoint on radar? And why can so many combinations of ingredients support the formation of large hail?
For hail, it's like, man, these things can occur across a pretty wide environmental spectrum. It really comes down more with hail at the storm scale. What is the trajectory of the hailstone that it takes through the updraft and downdraft? How much melting is there? How much wet growth, dry growth? That makes hail a little bit more complex.
That's why forecasting giant hail in advance is difficult, but so is spotting it on radar.
But I can tell you what we generally see is that the greatest areas of reflectivity on radar are not really where the largest hailstones fall. They're actually on the gradient. And you've probably experienced this chasing before where you're sitting there, nothing's happening, and all of a sudden a tennis ball falls behind you, right?
Oh, shoot. Oh, that's way bigger than golf balls, isn't it? And there are still many fundamental questions scientists are asking about giant hail. If you could, with everything in hail, given all the uncertainties, if you could wave your magic wand and answer one burning question about hail, what would it be?
I would like to better understand the convective this is a big word here, but convective morphology. In other words, how does the storm form, behave, and eventually decay? When it goes through that process, at what point is it most likely to be producing the largest hail possible? I have a lot of hypotheses about how storms merge together and potentially it takes a perfect trajectory through the updraft and grows really, really large.
But Gensini and his team will be out in the field next year, ready to hunt for answers.
We're hoping to work with folks in the field like yourself that can take out, get hailstones, save them for us, 3D scan them. That's going to be a big part of the project, as it has been for IVHS over the last several number of years. But this is going to be much more of a coordinated, large-scale field campaign with balloon observations, Doppler radar, hail pads, distrometers, catchments, you name it. We're going to try to cover these storms in the greatest detail as possible, including post-hailstorm swap drone flyovers, where we can capture the distribution of the hail from drone cameras after the storms, and hopefully right after, because there's obviously a lot of melting that occurs right after the storms go through.
For MyRadar, I'm meteorologist Matthew Capucci.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, and Windows.